Good morning, everyone. Is this the right one? This is the right one, okay. Hey, I've got a piece of paper here, which means I'm just going to read very, very little, and then I'm going to put it down, okay? But do you say happy Advent? Is that appropriate? You guys know? Happy Advent is appropriate? So happy Advent to everyone, okay? Okay, happy Advent. So for those of you who don't know, this is the beginning of Advent. You've been hearing that, right? You've been getting that message slowly, hearing it over and over and over again. And Advent's the time when we celebrate getting ready for Christmas. It's preparation, it's anticipation. And each Sunday, you start 4 Sundays before Christmas, and each Sunday has a special meaning: hope, peace, joy, love. And today happens to be, of course, the first one, and that's about hope. So, Desmond Tutu says this about hope. He says, hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. Despite all of the darkness, there's still light. That makes me think that in times of, on cloudy days, on stormy days, rainy days, when you can't see the sun, it doesn't mean that the sun's not there. It just means that there's still light. You just have to hold on a little bit longer. Even when it's dark at night, you know that it's still there. That's what hope is about. Well, let's get the Bible verses over real quick, okay? So here's what they say in Hebrews about hope, okay? Well, I don't have them all memorized, so I can't, I have to read the Bible verses, okay? But it says, we have hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. It's an anchor for the soul. And I think that's a good way, because it's your soul that gets kind of upset and needs that hope, okay? Now, that's the end of this, okay? Thank goodness. If I got a piece of paper in my hand, then I can't look at you. I can't talk to you. I don't feel like I'm connecting with you. It's like I'm trying to make sure I remember the right thing to say and all that kind of stuff. And that's not cool, especially when you're amongst friends and people that you like. And you guys I see as friends, people that I like. So I want to be able to talk to you and look at you and not be looking down to see if I got the words right. I'm not worried about that, okay? So let's talk about hope. Hope is that thing that sustains you during tough times. It's that thing that gets you, to look for the next day and to keep going one more step at a time. It's that hope. That's what it means. And I think that one thing, I was talking to my friend Kurt, okay? Kurt's birthday was yesterday, and I called Kurt, and I said, Kurt, I got to talk over at church. I'm going to talk about hope. And I gave him a little brief rundown about what I was going to say. And the first thing he said was, you got to have a much more climactic ending than that, because that just doesn't. And then the other thing that he said, make sure that you tell him that it's active. It's not that kind of hope where you just, I'm just hoping, and I'm just sitting around hoping things don't go wrong. I'm hoping things happen. No, it's got to be an active kind of hope, a hope where you actually do something, get up off your feet and move, that kind of hope. I think the good thing about hope is that it inspires you because you know that things can possibly get better. Things can change. That's what hope is about. And it only happens, though, if you do something. So to me, hope is sort of like it's like a spiritual tool. It's one of those spiritual tools that you want to have in your toolbox. So when things are not going good, when things are going tough, you can always go reach for it, and you can grab it. It's a practice. It's something that you do to sustain yourself. Now, my personal definition of hope is it's the opposite of despair. Just the word itself is like despair. You're not gonna. It's not gonna get no better. It's not even like you're physically hurt. It's just despair. Your soul just hurts. It's like when somebody dies that you love a lot, or when something doesn't go your way. It's just, oh my gosh. And can it ever get any better? That's when it's dark. That's when you have to be reminded that, the sun is still there, that the sun will still come out. That's when you need to have hope. So to me, hope is a tool that sort of gets you back up off the ground like some crutches and can help you get along until you can do it by yourself. You've got some hope. You know that things are going to work out. And that sort of sustains you through that tough time. Hope. So when I think, like I said, despair, that's a good description for me. But you guys know me pretty well, and if I really want to describe something to you, if I really want to get a point across to you, you know what I want to do? I'm going to tell you a story. So let me tell you a story. And let me tell you a story about hope. Okay? Imagine this ship. Oh, the year is 1748 on the Atlantic Ocean, out in the middle of the ocean, dark as can be. A big ship, about 100 feet long, maybe 30 feet wide, with real tall sails, a big mast, a big, powerful ship. And on the ship has many different decks on that ship. And when you go below deck, that first deck that you would see would be a low deck, low ceilings, not too high, but that would be the place where the crew would stay and the officers would stay, and they would store food and provisions on that deck. And then underneath that deck, there would be another deck, and that deck would be like for cargo, and that would be a deep deck. That would have a lot of room in that deck. And that ship would be filled up with cargo. And this particular ship, it took a route around the Atlantic. It was like a triangle kind of route. And when that ship was going from the Americas to Europe, that ship would be filled underneath in that hull with barrels and barrels of rum and sugar and gold and silver and all kinds of resources going from the new world back to the old world. And then when that same ship would leave Europe, it would go from London and it would go down the coast of Africa, and it would be filled with tools and metals and gunpowder and all kinds of new technologies that these people wouldn't have and that would be good for trading. But this particular time, the ship happened to be going from Africa on its way to the Americas. And now the hull was filled with human beings, people. Some who had been doctors and lawyers and city councilmen and farmers and all types of people. Some who had been warriors and had been captured and turned out on the wrong side and found themselves being sold, but just human beings, people. And now they're packed, and they're packed like sardines, shoulder to shoulder, feet to toe, because the more that we can get in, then the more the profit. And a ship that would be made to hold maybe 400 people would be filled with 450, 500 people being shipped across the ocean. Well, on this particular night, that ship was in the middle of the ocean in 1748. And the captain, Captain Newton, he could see that a storm was coming. And he could see it coming, and he knew that this was going to be a tough storm. And as the storm got closer and closer, the waves got higher and higher, and the wind began to blow. And the captain gave orders, and he told all the people that were down, the crew members, to come up aboard and tie down the stuff so it wouldn't be, thrown overboard. He had them lower the sails so that the wind wouldn't run them amok. He had all that preparation, getting ready, because he had hope. He had hope that they could make it through this storm. He wasn't going to try to outrun the storm. He wasn't going to try to beat the storm. He did what he had learned all his life to do. He dropped his anchor. He dropped the anchor to keep that boat stable so that he could have hope. That anchor served as his hope during the storm. Now, deep, 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 deep down in the bottom of that ship, those same people, they had hope also. They were packed so tightly that they couldn't move. Their legs and ankles were shackled. Their arms were shackled. Couldn't do anything. Had to defecate right there where they were at. Urinate right where they were at. Vomit right where they were at. Nothing there but disease, death, and despair. But you know that the ones who did make it through had one special thing that they could hold on to, and that was hope. They hoped things would get better. They hoped that things would work out. They hoped that it would all turn out okay. They had no idea if they'd ever see home again, what would happen with their children, their loved ones, but they had hope. And just that little bit of hope, like a little ember, a little flicker of a flame, that little bit of hope over generations, that hope grew and grew and grew. And that hope became a fire that opened up the door of freedom to many of their generations after them, their inheritors, because they had hope. See, sometimes the hope is about you individually, and sometimes it's about you and your family, you and your group, your community, what you hope for the world. And their hope is what was sustaining them, their hope. Because even in the midst of the storm, they were still chained. They were still shackled, and they didn't know what was going on outside with the storm. They didn't know what was going on in the darkness. And it was only their hope that could get them out of the despair that someone must be feeling in that kind of situation. But they weren't the only ones who had hope on that ship. Remember the captain. The captain had hope. See, Captain Newton he'd been a sailor for a long time, so he understood what was going on. He understood storms. See, when Captain Newton was a boy, he was born in early 1700s, 1725, somewhere like that, okay? And his mom, she was very religious. She read scriptures to him, she taught him how to pray, took him to church, did all those good things. But his mom died of tuberculosis when he was a young kid. And that meant he had to be raised by his father. Well, his father was a sailor. And being a sailor and a shipmaster meant that all he knew was the sea. All he knew was boats. So at the age of 11, little John Newton had to go work on the ships. And it began a tumultuous life for him, a life of a sailor. Now, he was a young teenager, and he was not a very good kid. He was what they call today a juvenile delinquent, a bad kid, always in trouble. I mean, he was in so much trouble, he'd get kicked off of one ship, and then kicked off another ship, and kicked off another ship. He just couldn't get his act together. He was so bad that at one point in time, he was conscripted by the Royal British Navy, okay? He had to work for them. It's like being a slave on a ship. You're required to work because you did some bad stuff. And that's what he had to do. And he even messed that up. He deserted, but he didn't even desert good. He got caught. And when he got caught, it was so humiliating. They bring him back to the ship. They strip him down. They flog him in front of all the other people. And they give him the lowest job on the ship. And they treat him, like a dog. His life is that bad. At one point, his life got so bad that he was traded off to a lady to be a slave. And so he was a slave in Africa. Had a terrible mistress who was his master. And she just mistreated him, and eventually he escaped her and got away, but he went back to the sea, and he started working on slave ships. That was his job. He started off as a little cabin boy, and he kept on working because he knew that there had to be a better life for him. And he kept on working, and he kept on working, trying to be a better person because he had been a pretty bad guy. But he saw that wasn't working for him, Being a juvenile delinquent kind of kid just wasn't getting him what he wanted to be. So he was trying to improve his life, and he kept on doing better, and he finally got to the point where he was the actual captain of the ship. That's why he understood about hard times and how hard times pass and how people get over hard times, because he had had that kind of history himself. He had gone through all kinds of challenges. So he knew that one more storm wasn't going to take him down. He just had to do the right things. And the right thing at that time was to hold on to his hope. And he dropped the anchor to hold on to that hope. And that night, during that midst of that storm, John had a premonition. He had one of those flash of lightning moments, when things all of a sudden made sense to him. And he had went down to his cabin, he started praying and meditating, and he did what a lot of us do. God, if you get me out of this one, I'll never do this again. I'll go straight. And you know what? It worked. The storm passed. They pulled up the anchor, dropped the sails, and went on their way. The storm passed. It actually did work. And to tell the truth about the story now, John was really just like a bunch of the rest of us. He had made that deal with God, but he went on right back on to doing his little ship thing. And for a couple more years, he still worked on some slave ships and, did that kind of thing, but it just didn't feel good to him anymore. Something had happened. Something had changed in him. And eventually, he just had to, I don't know if he had to get out of the business or God had to get him out of the business, but he had a stroke and it got him out of the business, so he had to leave. Got out of the whole shipping industry. And because of that, though, things had changed in his mind. And he became one of the biggest abolitionists in London. He started writing pamphlets, giving speeches about all the reasons why there shouldn't be slavery. He did all of those things. He became a mentor of William Wilberforce, who was one of the most powerful abolitionists in England at that time. He became a minister. He was a big-time bishop. He moved all the way up in the church. All of a sudden, his life had changed. He saw the power of hope and holding on for one more day and saw how it worked in his life. And he was fortunate enough that he died at age 82, but he died in 1807, and he lived long enough to see the Slave Act of 1807 pass in Britain and then abolish slavery. One person, one man changed his life and made a difference, all behind the idea of having hope, dropping his anchor right there and holding on till the storm passed, and then to continue on. He had hope. He had one of those inspiring lives many people don't know about John. Many people don't know that he ran slave ships and that his life changed as a result of that one night in the storm. But one thing that many people do know, they know his songs. They know his hymns. Because that night, he went down in his office and he sat down and he wrote the words, "Amazing grace, sweet sound to save a wretch life. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was lost in it." That's the power of hope. Hope can transform you. Hope can give you enough power and sustain you until things get better. Hope. And there's a way and there's a reason for having hope. Hope is not, to me, it's not one of those superstitious religious things, that people reach for and grab on, and there's no basis in fact for it. Hope, there is reason to have hope. Because if you have a sense of history, then you know what has happened before you. If you have a sense of history, you know that things have been bad before and you've gotten over them. If you have a sense of history, you know that, yeah, I got divorced, but, now I'm on the block and things are looking good. If you got a sense of history, well, one time I didn't have education, but now I'm real smart and I'm doing good. If you have a sense of history, you realize that, yeah, inflation is high now, interest rates are high now, but when I bought my first house, if you have that sense of history, you know that things change. All you have to do is just hold on a little bit longer. Be optimistic. And you'll see the opportunities. But if you're not optimistic, if you're not hopeful, then you don't see those opportunities. We all have a choice of being positive or negative. And I just think that it's better being positive. I saw this movie. You guys look like you're somewhat older, so some of you have seen that. Remember George Burns did a movie called God? And the little boy asked God, why you be doing so much bad stuff? Why do kids die in war, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And God told him, he said, I got trouble, doing one-sided things. I can only do things with two sides. Short, tall, good, bad, two sides. And it's up to you to pick which one of those sides you want. So, God gives you positive and negative. Which one do you want to choose? I say live with hope and choose the positive because that's just a lot more powerful. And if you do that and you do it with enthusiasm and emotion, then things begin to work your way. That's why you can have hope, because you know that that kind of recipe will work for you. It will make the cake of life that you want. A sense of history, right? Looking for opportunities and being optimistic, right? Being positive, enthusiastic, emotional. Now, by now, of course, you guys figured that's H-O-P-E. Hope. You got it, right? H-O-P-E. That's how you do it, okay? That's what hope is. That's why we need to have hope. And that's how you exercise hope. Remembering those things. It'll take you a long way. Look what it did to John Newton. Turned him from a rebellious young kid who had lost his way, a guy who was selling human beings across the ocean, to someone who had reached the pinnacles of success in the religious world and wrote hymns that we still now sing and believe. That's what hope can do for you. So I wish you all hope. And I hope that you have a great Christmas season. I hope that you really get into this whole Advent thing, okay? It's for everybody. It doesn't really matter what religion or what group you're at. Everybody is about hope. Anybody that's human knows that hope is the key, okay? Even, let me tell you guys a little secret, okay? When I say it's for everybody, even Advent's made up by everybody, okay? Today, first, is about hope. Hope for the Messiah, the coming of the Messiah, right? That's what it's supposed to be celebrating. That's what the Jewish people were celebrating, right? Because there wasn't no Christians here yet, right? It was just the Jewish people that were hoping for Jesus to come. Later on, it was those people who were followers of Jesus that are now hoping for the second coming. To me, that's a mixture of, Christianity, Jewishism. And if you go back and forth, we could probably mix some other religions into it, Buddhism, whatever. We could mix a whole bunch of stuff, because I think humankind, human beings, just understand, regardless of the religion, regardless of where you're at, hope. Hope works for all of us. So if you've got some problems right now, if you think things aren't going your way, or I don't care what the problem is, if it's problems with the politics of the country right now, if it's problems with your health, if it's any kind of problems, I'm telling you, hope will get you through. You got a problem with politics? A sense of history will tell you this ain't nearly as bad as it's been in the past, okay? You got problems with your health, or you can't find the right job. Being optimistic will make the right job pop up there a lot quicker. And being positive will make it a lot easier to deal with those crazy people that you have at home who don't act like they have some sense. We all have somebody like that. And living your life with enthusiasm, which means, God within. That will make a difference. So enjoy Christmas, enjoy this Advent season, and especially enjoy this first Sunday of Advent, and exercise hope. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thanks.